Let's discuss modifying variables. Modifying variables allows you to change the information that you initialized when you originally created the variable. And the reason why you might want to modify a variable is if you are using like a repeat option and you need to modify that variable to increment every time, let's say, that the repeat runs. Let's go ahead and go into Macro Express. And once again, I'm going to make a new macro by right-clicking on the white area and selecting New Macro. From here, I can select a hotkey again, and if I use Control-A, it's actually already in use since I used it in one of my other videos, so it's grayed out. So this time I'm going to select Control-Alt-B and click Scripting Editor. First, we need a variable to actually modify, and I'm going to show how to modify a string variable and an integer variable. So let's first set a string variable by clicking Variable Set String. From here, I'm going to already type in a value. Let's say hello there and click OK. I'm also going to set an integer, variable set integer. And the reason I'm doing this now is because I'm going to use it in the video in just a second here. The initial value, let's say, we will set to 5 and click OK. So that's all we've done so far is set T1 to hello there and N1 to 5. So if we go back up the list a little ways, which is still in the commands category variables, we can locate variable modify string. Let's go ahead and double click on it. And one very nice feature about Macro Express is if you can't remember exactly what one of these command options do, you can always click the help button and it will give you a synopsis of that different command and all the different things that you can do with that command. Let's go ahead and close this and discuss all these. Our first choice is trim, which allows us to remove all the spaces on the left and on the right of the variable value. In English terms, that means that if we have a variable hello there and we have a space afterwards and a space beforehand, it will trim that so it only has hello there without the spaces. And the reason why you might need to use this is not necessarily when you're setting the string with an initial value, but when you're collecting information from your user and they put a space in beforehand. The left trim and the right trim work the same way. However, the left only deletes the spaces before and the right trim deletes the spaces after. The strip CR or LF stands for carriage returns and line feeds. And the reason why you would want to delete carriage returns or line feeds is if the variable was set from the clipboard, you never know what your user is going to have in there. He could have 4 lines or a paragraph, and so that would eliminate that problem. Our next few choices allow us to convert the different variables. If we have a string variable, we can convert that from an integer or from a decimal. Meaning, in this example, is if we had N1 to 5, we can select Convert to Integer, and T1 will change into N1. Which wouldn't work, or actually it would set it to 0 because hello there is not an integer, it's text. The append text option allows us to add text to the end of our string variable. Our next option is append text string variable, which allows us to add or combine the contents of one text variable to the other text variable. The next option, copy whole text, allows us to copy from a variable, say T2 to T1. So whatever's in T2 will be copied to T1. Copy part of text allows us to select a specific section of text to copy from a different variable. So let's say that in variable T1, we want to copy from T1 to T2, and what is our starting position? Say 3, and how many characters do we want to copy? Say 5. it will copy that text from T1 and place it in T2. Our next option allows us to do deletions in the variable string. So if we have it currently selected T1 and it deletes from starting position 3, 5 characters, it would delete the middle part of this string. The uppercase and lowercase will change the text to all uppercase or all lowercase. The pad left allows us to type in spaces into our string variable. Say, for example, we have the word hello there. If we typed in 15 characters, and what that would mean is, I'm going to open Notepad here to give you an example. Width is equal to 5 characters. So if we have 15 characters minus 5, we would get 10 white spaces. So where do the spaces actually go? Well, if we pad left, it's going to add those 10 spaces to the left side, whereas if we pad right, it will add 10 spaces to the right side. The replace substring will find text to replace and replace it with a specific word that you specify. So if we wanted to replace hello with hi, we could do that using this command replace substring. Let's go ahead and go under option 2. Oh, and also on the replace option, we have replace all instances and ignore case. If this is not selected, it will only replace it the first time it shows. And if ignore cases is not selected, hello is not the same as hello with a capital H. Let's go ahead and go into option 2 now. We can do a few different options with these variables when we modify them. We can save the variable to clipboard. We can save the variable to a text file. We can append or add the variable to a text file. We can save to an ini file. So we could save this under a section and a key name. And if you need more information on the ini files, please review the variables video on creating variables or review the book. And save to an environmental variable, which means that we could either type like temp, which holds the location of the temporary folder of the computer, the Windows directory, which is WINDIR, which holds the folder name where Windows is located on your computer, or the path, which holds the number of folders where files should be searched if a file cannot be found in the current folder. Let's go ahead and go back into option 1 so we can modify our string variable. If we decide that we want to append text and we type in hello there, John, and we press OK, now it's going to add John to hello there at the end. So if we do a dialog by going up in the commands to the dialogues category and selecting text box display, we can then type in %T1% and click OK. Now this needs to appear at the bottom, and the reason why is because we first need to formulate our set string by using hello there, and then we're modifying our string to say John. If we put this text box display before the append John to T1, it would simply say hello there, and then the macro would end because we don't have another text box display after we modify that string. So we're going to leave this at the bottom and press play. If you notice there, it says hello there and then John. And the reason why John and there is put together is because I never put a space between the two words. If I wanted to do that, I could either do that on the variable set string, or I could do that on the modify string. Let's go ahead and do that on the variable modify string. If we double click on it again and we go to text to append and add a space, click OK, and press play once more, you'll notice that we get hello there John, and press OK. Now let's go ahead and modify an integer. So we need to go to the variables category and select variable modify integer. Now from here we can do quite a few different options to integers. From here we can add variables or values together. We can subtract variables or values, multiply, divide. We can convert our integer variable to a text variable. We can convert the integer variable to a decimal variable. We can copy the value, which will allow us to copy the variable to another variable. We can increment or decrement the value, which increment means that it will increase the value by 1 every time that this modify integer variable appears, or decrement means that it will decrease by 1 every time. And you could actually get this same result by either using add or subtract and just saying variable n1 value plus 1, or subtract variable n1 minus the value of 1. So that will do the same thing as increment and decrement. Let's go ahead and press OK. The last option that we're going to discuss is variable modified decimal in this video. Variable modified decimal allows you to do quite a few different options. We have several of the same options as the integers, such as add, subtract, multiply, and divide. We also have rounding, which allows us to round to the decimal place. We can convert the decimal to a text string. We can truncate to an integer, which means it will drop the decimal off. We can remove the integer, and we can copy the value. Okay, so in order for this to work, we need to move our text box display to the very end so that these all happen before we display our final output. The text box display we're then going to modify, and we're going to first show our string, which we've already done, but then we're also going to show our number by using %n1%, and I'm going to press enter once more and type in %d1%, space %d1%. And I'm going to change the second D1 to D2. That way, we can see that we copied D1 to D2. And let's go ahead and press OK and see what results we get. So we can notice that T1 combined hello there and John together. Then we also see 6, which N1 started out as 5, and we added 1 to it, which is 6. And copy D1 to D2 is 0 and 0. And the reason why they're both 0 is because we never specified what D was originally, so the program automatically assumes that D1 is 0. Now if we wanted to get a different result with that D1, what we need to do is press OK and come up to here and add or set the decimal to a different number. So we're going to select variable set decimal from inside the variables command category and click the add before button. Then what we're going to do is type in the value for this, or prompt for the value, or set from clipboard. If we set the value now, then it will save us time from having to answer any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by using the initial value of 5 and pressing OK. Now if I go ahead and run this once more, you'll notice that it copied 5 to 5. What happens though if we specify what D1 is after we specified D to copy D1 to D2? Because currently here D1 is set to 0, so D2 would be set to 0 as well. Then we say variable D1 is now set to 5. So what will happen is we will get the 5 first and then a 0, which is D2. So let me try to recap on that one more time. D1 at this point in its life is at 0. D2 is then set to 0 because we copied D1 to D2. Then we have a variable set decimal, which is D1, and we're setting it to 5. So no matter what the modified decimal is above it, we just said to macro express to change D1 to the number 5. And then when we run the result, we're going to get 5 first because we've changed D1 to 5, and we've changed T2 to 0 because it copied from D1. And that's all for this video on modifying variables, and thank you for watching.